He was one of the true unknown heroes of the Second World War.
The spirit of the cavalry lives on, and Colonel Ramsey is responsible for all of it.
He was a big part of American history that people don't know about.
Though his name may not be known to every American, Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Ramsey's courage, leadership, and military service are legendary. Edwin Price Ramsey was born in Illinois in 1917 and raised in Wichita, Kansas. His sister Nadine would later become one of America's first female pilots. But Ed had a more difficult path to greatness. When he lost his father at age 12, he became sullen and rebellious.
He was kind of a hellion as a young man in the 30s.
I was a little on the rambunctious side.
By the time he was a teenager, Ed had developed passions for moonshine and girls.
I was pretty close to being a juvenile delinquent.
But at 17, Ed's life changed dramatically when his mother enrolled him in the prestigious Oklahoma Military Academy.
He always had an interest in horses, and Oklahoma Military Academy was a horse cavalry school at the time, and so he really took to it.
Ed became an expert horseman and skilled polo player. He also refused to give in to bullying by upperclassmen.
I had gotten in trouble with some of the older cadets, and one of them particularly didn't like me, so he beat me pretty badly one time. He put a blood blister on me about 1/4 of an inch thick. A few weeks later, I found a dead rattlesnake out in the fields, and I put it into his bed one night. I heard a scream, and he almost died. I got even.
In June 1941, Ed volunteered for active duty in the Philippines, where he served in the elite 26th Mounted Cavalry.
He was with the 26th Cav as a lieutenant.
For 6 months, Ed enjoyed the life of an Army officer during peacetime.
Being assigned to the Philippines in those days as an Army officer was considered to be very nice duty.
Remember, I was a bachelor, early 20s, and I had a ball.
But everything changed on December 7th, 1941.
A date which will live in infamy.
The next day, the Philippine Islands were overrun with Japanese troops.
Suddenly, this really idyllic existence was just ripped out from under them.
A little over a month later, on January 16th, 1942, Ed was ordered to take a platoon of Philippine scouts to the coastal village of Morong.
I took a platoon of 27 men that I had never met before.
And they encountered a Japanese battalion. We're talking about 500 or 600 Japanese infantrymen.
So I ordered a charge of the unit that I was with.
It's classic cavalry. It's firepower, mobility, and the shock effect of the charge.
This happened on horseback.
Can you imagine that kind of job on a horseback?
It was crazy, but that's how I happened to have led the last cavalry charge in the history of the United States Army.
For his bold and courageous actions, Lieutenant Ramsey was awarded the Silver Star.
I shall return.
2 months later, General MacArthur left the Philippines and U.S. forces were ordered to retreat. But Ramsey wasn't ready to give up.
The order to surrender came, but we already decided we were not going to surrender.
With military approval, Lieutenant Ramsey joined the Philippine resistance, eventually commanding over 40,000 Filipino guerrilla troops.
What is amazing is he had absolutely no training in unconventional warfare. They really made it up as they went along.
Ramsey quickly rose to the top of the Japanese most wanted list, risking torture and decapitation.
He was really special forces before we had special forces.
But the war was taking its toll on Ed.
We were eating grass, leaves, snakes, anything we could get. We were all starving by that time.
But again, he did not give up. Ed endured malaria, yellow fever, dysentery, and severe malnutrition.
You name it, I had it. And fortunately, I lived through it. When I finally met the American troops, I weighed 93 pounds.
Ed's hard work and sacrifice saved tens of thousands of American and Filipino lives. To this day, Edwin Ramsey is revered in the Filipino-American community, second only to MacArthur as their most beloved American. After the war, Ed attended law school, became an executive at Hughes Aircraft, and lobbied Congress to provide benefits for the Filipino men and women who so bravely fought under his command.
I have appeared in Congress 3 times for the purpose of getting recognition of the Filipinos for what they did during the war. They were wonderful.
Along with other top awards and recognition, in 2001, Ed was made an honorary Green Beret. In 1990, Ed published his autobiography, inspiring new generations with his remarkable odyssey. But Ed Ramsey was not just a decorated war hero, not just a heroic soldier willing to risk life and limb for his country. He was also a devoted husband and father, the very definition of officer and gentleman.
I found Ed to be absolutely gracious and humble, willing to talk to anybody.
On March 7th, 2013, Ed died peacefully in his sleep. He was 95. Survived by his wife Raki and 4 children, as well as 3 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren, Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Ramsey was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. But his legacy lives on.
He was a great American who did not surrender.
He's one of the heroes we shouldn't forget.
That man's legacy needs to live on, and he needs to inspire other people to be as good as he was.
It is an amazing story and one that we need to remember.